Hi, and welcome to Together, the podcast where we teach and guide you in the art and the practice of sacred relationship. Today's episode, we're going from reactive to ritual, creating agreements for fighting well. In this episode, we're going to hit 3 topics here: why we repeat the same fights and how to break the cycle, the agreements that keep us connected in conflict, and how to create agreements. And you're going to want to make sure you stay till the end because I'm going to give you 3 top agreements all couples should have. And in this episode, we are going to get straight to the goods. This is going to be our shortest podcast ever because we want it to be clear and simple and direct to the point so that you can integrate this in your daily life.
Yeah, so diving into how to fight well. And, what's interesting is when they've done studies with couples, what they've found is the couples that stay together and are happier, it's not that they don't fight. They do fight because we should have disagreements. We should have moments of clunk if we're really both bringing ourselves to the table and we're being different people. But what they're able to do is they're able to fight in a way that keeps them connected. And for some of these couples, this can even be they get pretty passionate in the fighting. Or for other couples, it could be that it's pretty low key, or maybe it gets a little bit tense. But whatever it is, they're able to stay connected through the fighting. And there's a certain level of respect and care in the way that they're fighting. And when that isn't there, then what happens is that fighting becomes a nightmare. It's where most couples get really stuck. It becomes where our patterns start pinging. It becomes the place where we're like, oh no, we're here again. We're in this place again. And for some couples, that place of pinging, of getting reactive, of getting triggered, of not finding our way through this particular fight or this particular issue, that could be happening every day around many different things. Or it could be that it doesn't happen that often, but when it does happen, it's really sticky. Like there's certain topics, for example, in your relationship that get like that and you can't find your way through. And then there's also the whole terrain of the couples or the individuals in the coupleship who don't want to fight. They don't want to go into disagreeing or having differences because they don't know how to fight, or they don't have any template for that. We could have a fight, we could have a conflict, and it could actually lead to more intimacy and more connection. And because they don't know how, they're just in the frozen place of I'm not going to. And so then that could look like no fighting in the relationship, but then checking out, are we having the difficult conversations? And when we do, are we finding a way that meets both people's needs in a really good way? And, we live in a culture, Mike and I were just jamming on this. I'd love to hear from you, Mike. We live in a culture where, and Gordon Neufeld talks about this, we live in a culture where we're not a relationally attachment-based culture, meaning the systems and structures we've grown up in and that are built into the world around us aren't relationally based, and in the past, in certain cultures that were more relationally based, that would feed the health of relationship, there were rituals and ways of relating and rules of relating that were just written into the culture and set up that allowed for more harmony in how we relate. When that's not there, and there's no parameters of what are the rules of engagement, basically we can get really lost in that terrain. And I know for Mike and I, it's in certain places where we ping, or certain places where it's like, oh, this piece of material that's alive for Mike is pinging with my piece of material, and we can't quite find our way through. And it can get messy if we don't have any rules of engagement.
Yeah, and a big part of the reason why we have the same fights over and over is whatever we were conditioned with in early childhood, how our parents related with each other, all how culture modeled conflict. That's what kind of sets the programming. That's the default. One of the reasons that the same fights repeat over and over is it's comfortable to have that familiar experience is one thing. Another reason is it can actually be addictive. When we're in conflict, we start to dump hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And some couples feel more alive when those stress hormones are there. It feels exciting, it feels juicy, and there can be an addiction to the adrenaline hits. And so some couples, we've watched this, actually become like it's predictable where the fights will come in because it's like a part of it kind of feels good. It's like, ooh. And even when the love and the new thing starts to come in, the default will flop back in to like creating a bit of drama or conflict to get the fight going, to get the dopamine hit. So those are some of the reasons of why we repeat the same fights over and over. And we want to interrupt it by breaking the conditioning, the thing that we were programmed with, either growing up and in the relationship. If it's long term, we've watched this with couples that have been together for 20 years. It's like the same fight over 10, 15 of those years, and it's stacked over time. We need to interrupt the pattern, because once something becomes a habit, it's hard to break out of it if we don't even know it's happening. So one of the most important pieces to be able to break the cycle and break the pattern is to actually recognize that there is a pattern and what the pattern is. Like, a way that Courtney and I will guide this is like, when you do this, what does she do? And when she does that, then what do you do? And then going back and forth to get a map of, oh, this is the pattern we're dealing with. Now, and this is what we're going to go into. We're going to set in some parameters. We're going to give you some tools to interrupt that cycle, to create the new thing that actually leads into the connection and the respect and the care. You can still fight, but it's going to be something that actually leads to more connection.
Yeah. And, it's pretty exciting to learn that we're actually meant to be able to have fights and that there's actually a way to do it well. That's pretty exciting. It's like if you think of how we raise children, right? There's the boundaries, the banks, and the agreements, these rituals, these rules of engagement become the banks, and they hold us accountable. And the interesting thing about humans is that we will inevitably be selfish. Like if we're only operating from our own innate desire, we will inevitably over time become more and more selfish in relationship and feel more and more entitled, basically, and behave in less and less enlightened ways. And that's just partly because we're wired in a primal way. The thing that keeps us tending the we and tending each other is having agreements, is having rituals, is having agreed upon ways that hold us together. It's like that sacred container that holds us together. And so this is why agreements can help us connect inside of conflict. And, an example of where agreements, I encourage clients when I'm working with them to bring in agreements is when it's like, oh, we're in this place again, I approach my partner, I'm trying to communicate something with them, and instead of them hearing me, now all of a sudden they get reactive and defensive, and then I'm trying to explain myself, and then all of a sudden now, they're even more reactive, and now we're yelling at each other, and now we're saying mean things, and this is where it's like, great, okay, in this place, this is where we need agreements. And, the agreement could be as simple as getting clear, oh, my partner in this place has a limitation. They get really, if I approach them with feedback or with a request, that can feel really scary to them. So part of the agreement setting can be sitting down together and getting clear, what is it that my partner needs? What are some agreements we could make around how I can approach them when I have feedback or when I have a request, and actually creating an agreement around, I would need you to say it in this way, Or I would need you to approach in this way. I need you to approach slowly. I need you to connect with me with eye contact. I need you to check in with me first about if it's a good time to connect. Like, these are examples, and we can actually start to create a structure, an agreement together of what this kind of conversation can look like that starts to give both people clarity of how we're going to hold it.
Yeah, the agreements here that are going to keep you connected in the relationship are agreements that are in the direction to more safety, not avoidance of there being any crunch or conflict, but it's how to be in the conflict and to stay together in it and move through it. Because every time we go through a sticky place or a rupture-y place or a place where there's difference, and we have these agreements to that support staying there longer without getting to the place of, we call flooded or triggered and have to exit and get out of there. If we stay there, we actually build resilience. We actually build more tone in the nervous system, which makes us more relational beings on all levels. So this doesn't just support your relationship. It supports how you show up as a parent. It shows up how you show up with clients and people in your community. This is building relational tone. And so some of these agreements that actually encourage connection are ones that are oriented around how we speak to each other. The power of using I statements instead of, kind of finger pointing. Agreements that really encourage, connection in these places is like ones around touch in the conflict, and the Gottmans did studies. We'll use their research because they invested so much time, like decades and years and thousands of dollars. And they have this evidence proving that the couples that stay together, not just stay together, but stay together and feel really fulfilled within the relationship, the longest are the ones that actually have the most amount of physical touch points during times of conflict. Fascinating. So all these things that are actually creating little messages of, I actually want to be here. I actually want to move towards you. I want to be with you. And this is how the nervous system receives these little pieces of information while in conflict. Is like, we want to be allies to create situations that are like, hey, I actually want to go through this with you.
So what that could look like is making agreements of, hey, how could I offer you touch when we're in a disagreement? And each partner saying, this would be a way, or this is a way that would feel good, And the beautiful thing about setting up agreements around conflict is when both people are aware of what the agreement is, we can hold each other accountable in a way that's not like Mike is right and he's pointing out what I'm doing wrong in the fight, Instead, he can say, hey, do you remember our agreements? And in that way, it's the agreements themselves that are holding me accountable and holding him accountable. And I agreed to those agreements. We co-created them. And so I'm not bad or wrong. It's just, oh yeah, that's right. What were the agreements? And it's this beautiful way of pulling us back into what we really want.
Yeah, and it's allowing, because the intention hopefully is when we make the agreements, which we're going to go into how to do it. When we make these agreements, we want it to be from a place of resource where both people, when Courtney and I do this, we did some revised agreements the other day and we sit on the couch and check in. Oh, how's the language of this agreement? Does that really land? Oh yeah. Oh no, let's change it this way. And then together we really refine it from a resourced place so that when we're in the places of conflict, the most resourced version of our relationship is supporting our moments of conflict that are going to diffuse moments where if we didn't have the agreement, it might be an available opportunity to be like, well, you did this or you did that, and start to use weaponry in the language, which is common in our culture of like, well, you did that and want to point out all the things that are done wrong. But when we have agreements like, hey, can we stick to our agreement? The cool thing about this, you guys, this is fascinating, is when we bring in language like that, hey, can we stick to the agreement? Because it's a question, we're actually drawing on different functions of the brain, and we're actually encouraging the other person to move into their prefrontal cortex, which is their wise adult part of their brain. So it actually slows the momentum of the crunchy places down to actually bring in, oh, I have to inquire about that. New parts of the brain start firing, which are coming out of survival. This is why our agreements are allies for how we are in the conflict. Is if we reference or mirror it, it's like what we're inviting is, hey, let's go back to that place where we're safe together, where we've built a tool for this, something that's going to keep our boat from sinking. Let's go to that. And then when we discover, it's like, oh yeah, our agreement. It's like self-responsibility right there in the moment. And then we get to lean into that. And then it's not so personal. We can point it out on the agreement. It's not like, oh, Courtney didn't, is hurting me. It's like, oh, she's pointing out where I didn't follow the agreement. Oh yeah, that agreement. Instead of it being Courtney, it's that agreement.
Yeah, and we have agreements around, how to talk about things that we're learning about around relationship in heated conversations. Like if we want to bring in teaching points, like how to talk about that. We have agreements around what do I say if I'm not feeling met in what I'm requesting. We have agreements around what do we do if I'm offering you what you're asking and it's not landing and we're just kind of spinning out, So there's just like coming up with agreements that we can lean into in those crunchy moments.
Yeah. And so, well, let's go into how to create the agreements, and maybe some of these pieces, if they come up, we can speak to them. You get to find your way. We're going to share some examples. The way that we do it is, if you know what Notion is, it's a digital product where you can create different files and folders. And we have one labeled, there's in our personal folder, there's one around our relationship, and under there's a subcategory of agreements. And so we sit there and we type it out, and it's a document we can share with each other. We can both go back to that and be like, oh, if there's ever a moment of like, well, this is what the agreement was. We want to set ourselves up to win. Future self, future partnership, where we go into conflict. We don't want to rely on just memory, because our brains are tricky and they will believe what they want to believe. So we want it written down somewhere. So our version is Notion. You can do a notes document. You can just go old school and grab a journal that's you can title it, a theme that we talk about, soul of the relationship. You can have a section in there that's agreements and write them out together somewhere where it's actually visible that you can go back to and reference. This is so important. This is what creates the safety, is it has to be somewhere that's logged.
And, the way that you can do this, like I loved doing this process with Mike because we were having a place where we were pinging. We both had deeper material that was coming up for healing, and it was pinging. And so we weren't moving through. Each of us couldn't offer the other one what they were needing in the moment. And it was tricky. So we sat down and we started to map out agreements around how to navigate. And it felt so good to come at it from a different place, like to sit on the couch together and to be like, okay, what are all the agreements that we need to make? What are all the needs that we have in this terrain? And just that action of doing that was helpful. And, one way you could do it is actually pick, like if you have a recurring fight, slow it down and really think about what are the patterns that play out inevitably each time. And then how can we make agreements around each of those pieces? What's needed here? What do you need, Mike, here? Okay, let's make an agreement of this is what we're going to offer Mike when that happens,
Yeah. And what you're beautifully speaking to, and what we'd encourage here, is do a section for each partner. And so take turns. So, in our situation, oh, what does Courtney need in this situation? Because, and that you beautifully brought this up the last time of, oh, we need different things in this place. So we have to have written out with clarity, oh, Courtney needs this here. Oh, I need this here.
Mm-hmm.
And so when making requests, when communicating something, and going nice and slow together, and what in the making of the agreements, and this is going to be one of the bonuses we're going to speak to, but I'll share it here, is we need to have one of the agreements that any partner can pause. We call it the sacred pause. Welcome in all situations of conflict and crunch. And so even while making the agreements, really inviting, that the pause is welcome if something starts to feel a little bit overwhelming or triggering,
or it's going too fast,
just so things can slow down and that the two of you can ask the right questions. The aim in the agreements is you want to show up as your adult. This is adult work. You want to dig deep. This isn't the time to process all the different little things. It's getting super clear of like, what's the need here? What are you requesting? What are you actually like in this moment when that's playing out? What is it that you're asking me to offer in that situation that's going to help you feel better? And then cataloging that. Oh, okay. So that you're at the end of it, you want to have on paper in a digital document, each partner super clear what they're needing in specific or in relationship to whatever topic that is, whether it's around parenting or whether it's around intimacy or whether it's around how the weekends flow.
Yeah, and in this one around agreements around how to fight, it can feel so good to sit down with your partner and notice them really care about an agreement that's going to feel good for you.
Yeah.
Like, and vice versa, right? And the important thing here is that we're coming up with an agreement with agreements that are win-win. Both people feel good about it. Mm. And we got to hang out and really get creative until we find that where both people are like, yeah.
And an important piece to speak to here is the inner experience of what a conflict is might be different for each partner. So one partner might feel like there's a conflict and the other partner might be convinced, I'm fine. I don't feel like there's conflict. And so it's really important to get to know what all these ingredients are so that there can be a communication of like, I'm leaning into the agreements here. I'm feeling crunch here, and this is maybe let's shift into the 3 bonus top agreements.
Yeah. So we're glad you stuck around. So these are the top 3 agreements that all couples should have. And one of them is the sacred pause. And so this is where anytime things are going too fast, one of us feels reactive, both of us feel reactive, maybe we just aren't hearing each other and we're there's like crunch in that, or even just someone shuts down. When we pause and one of us calls a pause and we pause intentionally, like now we're pausing, but we're both focusing on regulating, breathing, refinding safety. And sometimes you might want to pause for 5 minutes, just till the field just settles and then continue on. And when we can catch it like that, we can let everything settle and then restart from a more regulated place.
Yeah, the sacred pause is the out breath. It's this invitation to slow the nervous system down so that there can be a constant connection. That's the name of the game there.
And then another one is I statements. Mike, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I statements I think are one of my most valued agreements just in life. What's super fascinating, there's been studies around this, is if we use you statements, especially in places of perceived threat, which is conflict, our nervous system receives you statements like a dagger. It's like the nervous system says, you want to fight? Like if there's a you statement, it can really provoke defense mechanisms and all these different strategies. And so we want to prevent that from happening. And I statements is the way to do that. When I speak about my experience and I share what I heard or what I'm feeling and what I'm wanting, I'm claiming my experience. It's not putting my experience on to Courtney or anyone else's. I'm only sharing about my experience, which actually creates more space in the other person's nervous system for them to have their own experience that might be completely different. It's not accusatory. I statements is claiming I'm in here and I own what's going on from where I'm sitting. And it's my responsibility to share what's happening from here. So the I statements are really a respect in the communication in crunchy places. And we really want to hold that sacred.
And then the last one is no bond threats. And so, for some people when they're fighting, they actually will threaten Like, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. I don't even know why I'm with you. I made a bad mistake when I chose to be with you. Like, people will say things like this.
Ouch.
Oh, ouch. Yeah. Or bond threats can be more subtle, like, oh, like this just isn't working, or, oh, I don't even want to, join tomorrow for our family gathering. It's like starting to threaten things that are bigger than just this moment, right? When we start to be like, well, I don't even want to support you in your art, or like these kinds of things, all of those things are bond threats because we're making it bigger than this moment. And we're threatening the safety and attachment and security of, because we want to hold for each other, is I'm here and I get triggered and sometimes I'm not able to be there, but I'm going to come back. That's what we want to hold. But the second we go into like pushing other things away, threatening the bond in any way, it'll basically chip away at the overall safety in the relationship. And it's when bond threats happen over and over and over, it's very hard for couples to recover and return to love.
Yeah, it's a really big one. It's like the big, big, big one. We want to eliminate that as much as possible.
Yeah. And notice like what are little ways we do that to each other, that maybe aren't big, but they're little ways that we think more in terms of like, this is what I want. And we are cutting our partner out in some way and noticing that. Yeah. Thanks for sticking around. And so if you liked this podcast episode, please give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment. And we have a free gift for you. You can go down into the show notes, put a screenshot of your 5-star rating, and you'll receive an activation from Mike and I around embodying your relationship. And we also just want to tell you about our Together Couples community, our online community with other conscious couples who are practicing and growing together. It's a combination of spiritual practice and really practical embodied tools. We do practices together, couples do practices together in their homes on each call. Mike and I offer direct guidance. It's a beautiful group of people that love each other deeply and want to learn more about how to journey relationships. So if you're interested, check it out in the show notes.